My wife was cheating on me with someone I never saw coming, and it began years before we even met. I thought I knew everything about her, but I was wrong. The truth hit me like a punch I didn't see coming, and it still feels unreal. I'm Ethan, 34, married to Sarah for 6 years. People always said we were the perfect couple. I believed it too. Lately, though, Sarah changed. She was on her phone all the time. Started having late meetings that didn't make sense. Her laughter, which used to be for me, felt like it belonged to someone else. I told myself it was just work stress, but something didn't sit right. Then, one evening, I found a hotel key card in her coat pocket. That's when I realized things were worse than I thought. I was folding laundry late Saturday evening when I spotted something strange in the pile. It was a key card, the kind you get for hotel rooms. The card had the name of a hotel downtown, a place Sarah and I had never been to together. I stared at it for a long time, turning it over in my hand. How did it get here? I couldn't think of any reason she'd have a card from that hotel. We had no plans to go anywhere that weekend. I put the card down on the table and tried to push the thought away. Maybe it was from a friend or something she picked up by mistake. But something didn't sit right. My stomach tightened, and I couldn't stop looking at it. After a few minutes, I grabbed my jacket and headed out. I told myself I was just going to ask the hotel about it. Nothing more. When I got there, the hotel was quiet, not many people around. The lobby looked fancy, but I didn't care. I walked up to the front desk and tried to sound casual. Hi, I'm looking for some information. My wife's name is Sarah, and I think she might have stayed here recently. The receptionist gave me a polite smile, but hesitated. I could tell she was trying to decide how much to say. After a beat, she nodded. Yes, there was a Sarah who stayed here last night. She had a reservation under that name. Her voice was neutral, but I felt my chest tighten. Did she come with anyone else? I asked, trying to keep my tone even. The woman looked away for a second, then shook her head. I'm sorry, I can't give out that information. That was fair, I guess. I didn't expect her to just tell me everything. But inside, my mind was spinning. Who was she with? What was she doing there? I stood there for a moment, holding the key card. It felt heavier in my hand than before. I wanted to ask more questions, but I didn't know how. I felt like I was stepping into a place I didn't belong. Part of me wanted to leave right then, go home and pretend I hadn't found the card. But another part needed to know. I thanked the receptionist quietly and left the hotel. Outside, the air felt colder than it had been before. I kept looking at the key card, like it held some secret I had to unlock. I wondered if Sarah knew I'd found it. If she did, what would she say? I started walking back home, my mind racing. I tried to imagine what could explain this without it meaning something bad. But the more I tried, the less convincing the ideas sounded. I felt a chill run down my spine, the kind you get when you realize something's not right. When I got home, the house was dark and quiet. I put the key card on the kitchen counter and sat down, staring at it. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation. I wanted to believe Sarah was just out of town for some reason, and I was overthinking everything. But deep down, I knew something had changed. I didn't say anything to her that night. I watched her move around the house, doing the same things she always did, but now everything felt different. I wanted to ask her about the card, but I was afraid of the answer. I was afraid of what I might find out next. I thought it was just a key card. But standing there in the hotel lobby, hearing about her reservation, I felt like I was holding a small door open to something I wasn't ready to see. I wondered who she was with and why she didn't tell me. The silence between us was already growing, and I wasn't sure if I could fill it again. That night, I waited until Sarah was back from work. It was already late. I sat on the couch, the hotel key card pressed between my fingers. When she walked in, I didn't say anything right away. I just watched her, trying to read her face. Finally, I broke the silence. I found a hotel key card in your coat, I said, making sure she saw it. Her eyes flicked down to the card, then back up to me. There was a pause, like she was trying to decide what to say. Then she said, "Oh, that was for a work meeting." I nodded slowly but wasn't convinced. A meeting that needed an overnight stay? I asked, my voice low and steady. She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. Late night, early morning, you know how it is. There was something off in the way she said it, like she was hoping I wouldn't ask more questions. I frowned. Do I? I said, feeling the doubt creeping in. Her answers were too quick, too vague. It wasn't like her to be so dismissive. She usually explained things, even the small stuff. But this time, she just kept looking away, fiddling with her keys. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the way she avoided my gaze, the way she didn't offer any more details, it made my stomach tighten. I could tell she was hiding something, but I didn't want to push too hard just yet. Not before I had more proof. She sat down on the chair opposite me, still quiet. I waited, hoping she'd say something more. But she didn't. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. I finally asked, "Who was at this meeting?" She hesitated a moment, then said, "Just some clients. You wouldn't know them." That felt like a brush-off. I wanted to press again, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I just stared at her, trying to catch any sign that she was lying. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed something else. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. I wasn't sure. I kept the card in my hand, turning it over slowly. "When exactly was this meeting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Last Thursday night," she said quickly, like she wanted to get it over with. I shook my head. "You never told me about this." I felt a mix of frustration and hurt. We usually told each other everything. What else was she keeping from me? She looked down at her hands and said softly, "I didn't think it was important." That answer didn't sit right with me. I knew Sarah well enough to know when she was hiding something. And this felt like more than just a forgotten detail. I could feel the tension building in my chest. I wanted to ask more, but I also didn't want to start a fight. So I stayed quiet and waited to see if she'd say anything else. She didn't. After a while, I said, "If this is about work, just tell me. I'm not mad about the meeting. I'm upset because you didn't tell me." Her eyes met mine for a brief second before she looked away again. "I know," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." That apology felt thin, like it was just words. I wondered if she was sorry for lying or just sorry I caught her. We sat there in silence. I wanted to believe her, but the doubt was gnawing at me. The hotel key card in her coat wasn't just some random thing. It meant something, and I wasn't sure I was ready to find out what. I thought the conversation was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The feeling that something was off kept gnawing at me. I tried to push it away, tell myself I was imagining things. But the doubt wouldn't leave. So, after a few restless nights, I decided to hire a private investigator. I wanted to know. I needed to know, even if I didn't want to hear the answer. A week later, the investigator came to our home. I was nervous when he handed me the file. It was thick, full of pictures and notes. I flipped through it slowly, my hands trembling. Then he said it, plain and cold. "Your wife is having an affair." I froze. The photos were clear. Sarah was with another woman. They were holding hands, sitting close at a cafe, walking together like a couple. I recognized the other woman right away. It was Rachel, Sarah's friend from college. I remembered the stories Sarah told, the photos on her phone. Rachel was always there, part of our circle too. But Rachel is? I stammered, my voice barely more than a whisper. The investigator nodded. "Yes, she's her lover." It hit me like a blow. I felt my world tilt. I sat down, the file slipping from my hands onto the floor. My mind raced, but my body stayed still. I couldn't make sense of it. Sarah never gave me a hint. No late nights, no secret phone calls that I noticed. We had our fights, sure. But this? I never saw it coming. I stared at the photos again. They weren't just casual friends. The way they looked at each other. The small touches. It was something else entirely. I thought about Sarah's laugh, the way she smiled at me. Was that all a lie? Or was it just not enough? I tried to remember if I'd missed any signs. Maybe I was blind or pretending not to see. The thought made my stomach turn. I felt angry, but also ashamed. How could I not know? How could I have been so close and yet so far? There was a part of me that wanted to deny it, to tell myself it was a mistake. But the evidence was right there. "I need to know why," I said quietly, more to myself than to the investigator. He shrugged. "That's up to you." But I didn't find anything that looks like it's just casual. "They're serious, at least for now." I nodded, even though I felt numb. I thanked him and watched him leave. Then I sat alone with the photos, the truth settling in like a weight. I thought about Sarah, about Rachel, about us. Part of me wanted to confront Sarah right away, but another part was frozen, afraid of what I'd hear. I didn't want to break what we had, but I knew it was already breaking. I wondered if Sarah had been unhappy, if she ever loved me the way I thought. I looked at the last photo again. Sarah's face was soft, different from how she looked at me. There was a quiet happiness in her eyes, and a sadness too. I realized I had never seen that side of her before. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. I didn't know how long I stood outside before I pulled out my phone and called Mark. I just needed someone who wouldn't judge me, someone who knew Rachel and me well enough to understand the mess I was in. When he picked up, I barely said hello before blurting, "I need to get out of here. I need to talk." We agreed to meet at a cafe a few blocks away. The walk there was cold, but I barely noticed. My mind was spinning with questions I didn't have answers to. When I saw Mark sitting at a corner table, he didn't even ask what was wrong. He just slid me a coffee and waited. I stared down at the cup, fingers trembling slightly. Then I said, "I found out something. About Rachel." My voice was low, rough. "She's been seeing someone else." I paused, swallowing hard. I don't know for how long. Mark's face stayed calm, but his eyes darkened. "How long?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," I said again. "That's the part that's killing me. I don't know when it started or why she never told me. I thought we were okay. I thought everything was fine." My hands clenched into fists on the table. Mark leaned back slowly. "You deserve to know the truth, Ethan. You can't live like this, wondering." I nodded, though the knot in my stomach tightened. I want to ask her, but what if she lies? What if she just denies it? I don't know if I can hear her say anything that makes this less real. Mark shook his head. "You have to confront her. It's the only way to get some clarity. You've been holding this inside, and it's eating you up. You can't keep guessing." His words hit me harder than I expected. I wanted answers, but I also feared them. I wanted to be angry, but part of me still hoped there was some explanation. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she was confused. Maybe there was something I didn't understand. Mark looked at me carefully. "You're not alone in this. Whatever happens, you've got people who care about you." I gave a small, tight smile. "Thanks. I don't know what I'm going to say." "You don't have to script it out," Mark said. "Just be honest. Tell her what you know and how you feel." I rested my forehead on my hands. The noise of the cafe faded around me. I thought about Rachel, about the nights we spent together, the quiet mornings, the plans we made. Was any of it real? Or was it all just a story she told me to keep me close? Mark's voice broke through the silence. "When are you going to talk to her?" I looked up, eyes dry but heavy. "I don't know. Soon, I guess." He nodded. "Good. Don't wait too long. The longer you wait, the harder it gets." I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I wanted to believe that confronting her would bring some peace. But part of me was bracing for something worse. Something I wasn't ready to face yet. We sat there for a few more minutes, neither of us saying much. The weight between us was thick, but it felt good to have someone on my side. When I finally stood up to leave, Mark reached out and clapped me on the shoulder. "You'll get through this." I nodded again, but as I walked away, the quiet between us stayed with me. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. I showed up at Rachel's apartment without much thought. I just needed answers. When she opened the door, I didn't waste time. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, voice tight. She looked at me like she was trying to find the right words, but couldn't. For a long moment, she just stayed quiet. "Finally," she said, "it's been over 2 years." Then, after a pause, "It started before you and Sarah even met." I blinked, not sure I heard right. My head was spinning. I didn't know what to say. Rachel let me in, and we sat down. I kept running it over in my head. Before Sarah? That hit me harder than anything I expected. I always thought this was something that happened after I was in the picture. But no, it was before. She looked down at her hands. "Sarah wanted to end it when she met you," Rachel said quietly, "but we couldn't let go." The words hung between us, heavy and sharp. I felt like I was choking on the truth. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. I stared at her, searching for something I could hold on to, but it was just silence. Rachel's voice was soft, but steady. "We tried to stop. Really. But it was like we kept pulling back in." She looked up then, eyes meeting mine. "I didn't want to hurt you or Sarah." I swallowed hard. The room felt smaller. I kept thinking about everything I thought I knew. About Sarah. About us. "I don't know how you could keep this from me," I finally said. "How you could keep this from Sarah." She shook her head slowly. "Because I didn't want to ruin what you have. I didn't want to be the reason it all fell apart." Her fingers twisted nervously in her lap. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell or storm out. But I was too tired. Too confused. I just sat there, letting it all sink in. Rachel's next words were a whisper. It wasn't just about us. It was about us not being able to let go of the past. I nodded, but my mind was racing. The thought of Sarah and Rachel tangled up like this, for so long, hurt in a way I couldn't explain. I felt betrayed, but also something quieter. Like I'd been kept out of something important. Something I deserved to know. Rachel looked at me again. I wish things were different. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to say it was going to be okay. But the truth was, I didn't know what was going to happen next. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. I thought it was over. But the silence that followed said otherwise. I sat on the edge of the bed with a suitcase open beside me. It felt strange, like I was packing to leave a life I thought I knew but didn't. Everything in the room, the clothes, the photos, the quiet hum of the city outside, suddenly felt foreign. I folded my shirt slowly, careful not to rush. It was like the act itself was holding me together. I kept thinking about the truth I'd just uncovered. How long had it been there, hiding under the surface? How many times had I ignored the signs because I wanted to believe in us? It wasn't just about what she did. It was about what it meant for me, for us, for everything I thought we were building. I couldn't live in this house knowing it was built on lies. My phone was on the nightstand. I stared at it for a long time before finally making the call. The lawyer answered quickly, calm and professional. I told her I needed help to understand my rights, to figure out what to do next. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay or go, but one thing was clear. I needed to stop pretending everything was okay. As I zipped my suitcase closed, the front door clicked. Sarah's voice came from the hallway, soft but sharp. "Where are you going?" I didn't turn around immediately. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried to steady the quick pace of my heart. When I finally looked up, she was standing there, her eyes wide and searching. She looked scared, like she didn't understand why this was happening or what it meant. Her hands trembled slightly, and I could see the weight of confusion pressing down on her. "To find some truth in my life," I said quietly. She didn't say anything at first, just blinked like she was trying to make sense of the words. Then she took a small step forward, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "This isn't about blaming you," I added, my voice softer but firm. "It's about me. About needing to figure out who I am when everything feels like it's slipping away." Sarah looked down at her feet, then back up at me, eyes glossy. "Please don't go," she whispered. "We can fix this. I can explain everything." But I had already made up my mind. I grabbed the suitcase handle and moved toward the door. The lock clicked as I turned it behind me, and the hallway light flickered overhead. I could hear her footsteps behind me, hesitant and slow, fading as I stepped outside. The air hit me differently out here, cooler, sharper. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something, but I didn't know what. I wasn't sure if it was an ending or a beginning. The street was quiet, almost too quiet, and I realized how loud the silence between us had become. I didn't look back. The door shut behind me with a final thud that echoed in the empty space. I pulled my jacket tighter and started walking without a clear destination. I thought maybe the truth was out there somewhere, waiting for me to find it. But even as I took those first steps away, a small part of me wondered if I was running from something I couldn't escape, or maybe from someone I still cared about more than I wanted to admit. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. Sarah showed up at my temporary apartment the next day. I wasn't expecting her, not so soon. The knock on the door was sharp, almost desperate. When I opened it, she was standing there, eyes wide and a little red, like she hadn't slept. "Can we just talk this through?" she said, voice barely louder than a whisper. I looked at her for a long moment. The place was a mess, boxes half unpacked, clothes thrown on the couch. I could see the strain on her face, the way she was holding herself like she was trying to keep from falling apart. But that wasn't enough anymore. Not for me. "There's nothing left to say," I told her, stepping aside so she could come in. I didn't want to be harsh, but I needed to be clear. I sat down on the edge of the couch and pulled the papers from the table. The separation papers. I held them up, not wanting to say the words out loud. "You made your choices. Now I'm making mine." She didn't say anything, just stared at the papers like they were some kind of poison. Her hands trembled a little, but she didn't reach for them. I could feel the weight of the silence between us, thick and heavy. It was like all the time we spent trying to fix things vanished in that quiet moment. I wanted to say something more, to explain why I couldn't keep going, but the words caught in my throat. I watched her face, searching for some sign of understanding, or maybe regret. But she just looked away, blinking hard, like she was trying to hold back tears. I felt a pang in my chest, but it was mixed with relief. A part of me had been waiting for this moment for so long. She finally spoke, voice barely steady. "I didn't think it would end like this." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The truth was, I thought about this moment 100 times. How it might go. But none of those thoughts made it easier now. She sat down opposite me, but kept her distance. The room felt colder, like the space between us was growing wider. I realized that her silence was louder than anything she could say. It was the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. I looked down at the papers again. Signing them would make it real. Official. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I knew I had to. For both our sakes. She reached out her hand, almost like she wanted to take the papers, but then stopped herself. Instead, she pulled her knees up to her chest and just sat there, quiet. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the mix of sadness and something else, maybe guilt or regret. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw it. I asked quietly, "Do you want to stay? Or is this over for you too?" She shook her head slowly. "I don't know," she said. "I wish I did." The honesty in her voice made my throat tighten. For a moment, I thought maybe there was a chance to fix this. But then I saw the way her eyes darted away, like she was already making peace with the end. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. The noise felt distant. I felt numb. I turned back to her and said, "I'm going to sign these tonight." She nodded, but didn't look at me. I thought it was over. But the silence that followed said otherwise. It's been almost a month since I packed up and left our home. I'm staying with Mark now, crashing in his spare room. He's been steady, the kind of friend who listens without making things worse. I didn't expect to lean on anyone like this, but he's made it easier to get through the days. Sarah and I are officially separated. We haven't signed the final papers yet, but it's just a matter of time. She moved in with Rachel, which is something I heard from Mark first. Sarah needed a place, and Rachel offered. I don't know if that's temporary or not. I haven't reached out to Sarah since we split. The silence feels necessary right now. I started seeing a therapist last week. It was awkward at first, sitting there and trying to explain everything without breaking down. I've never been great at talking about feelings, but I know I need this. The betrayal still hits me in waves. Some mornings I wake up and the sting is sharp before I even open my eyes. Other times, it just feels like a dull ache that's always there somewhere under my skin. The therapist says it's normal, that healing takes time. I want to believe that. I really do. Mark's been checking in a lot. Not in a way that feels pushy, just quiet support. Like the other night, when I was scrolling through my phone and accidentally saw a message from Sarah's new place. It was nothing important, just a good night text, but it hit me hard. I felt that old tightness in my chest, like I was choking on something I couldn't swallow. Mark noticed immediately. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a glass of water and said, "You're doing okay. One day at a time." That's the thing. I'm trying not to look too far ahead. It's easier to focus on the small steps, getting out of bed, going to therapy, working through one day. Some days I'm fine. Other days, I stare at the ceiling and wonder if this will ever stop hurting. I'm not angry anymore, not really. More numb, with bursts of sadness that catch me off guard. I caught myself thinking about Sarah the other day. Not in the way I used to, not with hope or anger. Just wondering if she's okay. It surprised me. I don't want to wish her well, but I guess I still care in some way. Maybe that's the hardest part. The fact that someone who hurt me this much can still matter. Our home feels like a memory now. I drove past it last weekend. The blinds were drawn, and I saw Rachel's car in the driveway. It was strange to see someone else living a life I built with Sarah. Part of me wanted to turn around and drive away, but another part just wanted to stay and let it sink in. I didn't. I couldn't. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm learning to be alone in a way I never had to before. The quiet is different here at Mark's place. It's not the silence of a house filled with memories and broken promises. It's just an empty room, a bed, and the occasional sound of Mark moving around downstairs. It's less suffocating, but it also reminds me how much I lost. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever trust someone again. Not in the big, life-changing way, but just enough to let them in without feeling like I'm setting myself up to be hurt. I'm scared of what that means for the future, but I'm not shutting the door completely. I think part of me knows that I have to try, even if it feels impossible right now. Mark says I'm stronger than I think. I don't always believe him. Some nights, I feel like I'm barely holding it together. But then I remember the small victories, getting out of bed, going to work, showing up to therapy. Those moments add up. They keep me moving forward. The divorce papers will come soon. I'm ready for that step, even if it feels like admitting defeat. It's the last piece of that life I had with Sarah. Once it's done, there's no going back. I don't want to go back. I want to move on, even if the path is unclear. I still don't know what the future looks like, but I'm starting to believe I'll find my way. It won't be easy. Some days will still hurt like hell. But I'm here. I'm still standing. And for now, that's enough. I thought this chapter was over. But the silence that follows says otherwise. Now, I live with Mark. He's been steady, patient, exactly what I needed after everything. There's no pretending with him, no hiding things. That's new for me. Sarah and Rachel are together now. I've filed for divorce. It's official, but it still feels strange to say out loud. The betrayal still hurts, sharp and real, like a wound that's slow to heal. Some days, I catch myself doubting if I'm making the right choices. But then I remember how it felt to be kept in the dark, how alone I was. I'm learning to trust myself again, to listen to what I need instead of what I think I should accept. It's not easy. Some nights, I lie awake, replaying everything, wondering if I missed signs. This whole experience taught me something important. Transparency isn't just about honesty. It's about respect, about giving someone the chance to understand the whole truth. Communication isn't just talking, it's listening, really listening. I'm trying to hold on to that, even when it's hard. I'm slowly putting my life back together, piece by piece. It feels like starting over, but on my own terms this time. I don't have answers for everything yet, and I probably never will. But I'm determined to find happiness that doesn't come with strings attached or secrets buried deep. For the first time in a long while, that feels possible. If you're reading this and going through something similar, I want you to know that facing the truth is brutal but necessary. Hiding from it only drags the pain out longer. Talk to someone you trust, or find a professional who can help you sort through everything. You don't have to do this alone, even when it feels like your world's falling apart. It's okay to take your time to heal. Trust doesn't come back overnight, and neither does your sense of safety. But remember, no matter what, your self-respect has to come first. Don't settle for half-truths or excuses that leave you guessing. You deserve clear answers, even if they hurt. Clarity is the first step toward peace. And peace is what you need most. Not just the quiet that comes from ignoring problems, but the kind that feels steady inside, even if things around you are messy. Protect that peace. Hold on to it like you would something precious because, honestly, it is. You owe it to yourself to live without constant doubt or fear. If you're stuck wondering what to do next, start small. Reach out to someone who listens without judging. Write down what you feel. Take each day as it comes. You might think you're broken now, but there's strength in surviving this. Trust me, you'll find it again. Just don't give up on yourself.